and welcome to the Simcoe County Archives. My name is Jen Huddleston, and I'm the Private Collections Archivist.
And I'm Ellen Millar, Corporate and Municipal Records Archivist.
At the Simcoe County Archives, we work to preserve, collect, and make available the documentary heritage of the County of Simcoe. We collect records from the lower-tier municipalities, the County of Simcoe, and from private citizens.
As we approach Remembrance Day, we want to focus this segment on the wartime and military history resources and collections at the Simcoe County Archives. The focus is going to be on those who served and especially on those who paid the supreme sacrifice during international conflicts.
The first conflict we're going to be looking at is the Second South African War, also known as the Boer War, which ran from 1899 to 1902. This war was the first overseas conflict for which Canada actually dispatched troops. Around 7,000 Canadians went over, including 7 men from Simcoe County. So we've pulled a couple of records that we have from this time period. This is a decorative handkerchief, and it has an interesting tie to the Second South African War. You can see it features a poem and also music, which was by Sir Arthur Sullivan. The song was written as part of an appeal by a British newspaper to raise money for soldiers fighting in the Second South African War and their families. The provenance of this particular handkerchief was a bit of a mystery to us. We suspected that it was purchased in England by someone who was serving, and then it's made its way back to Canada with him. And you can see here that we have initials and a number, a service number included on the handkerchief. So we actually did a little bit of digging, and we were able to trace it back to Henry Dougal Black, who was indeed a member of the Simcoe Foresters and a resident of Barrie who served in the Boer War. So this record is a copy of the Barrie Examiner from March 22nd, 1900, and it features a resolution of sympathy for a young man who served and was killed overseas during the Second South African War. Private James Halkett Finley was a resident of Barrie and a corporal in the 35th Regiment Simcoe Foresters and was part of the 2nd Battalion Royal Canadian Regiment of Infantry. He was killed at the Battle of Paardeberg on February 18, 1900. Finley's name is on the honor roll of the Grey and Simcoe Foresters and is called out during the reading of the memorial roll of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, located in Barrie.
The next conflict we remember is the First World War, which lasted from 1914 to officially 1919. About 8,000 men and women from Simcoe County served overseas in England, France, Belgium, parts of Europe, as well as Siberia, Africa, and West Asia. Those who remained at home closely followed the war news, and many created scrapbooks. Here are a couple of pages from the wartime era scrapbook of the Frost family of Orillia. Included are photographs taken in 1916 while Leslie and Cecil Frost were aboard SS Cameronia on their way from Halifax, Nova Scotia to Liverpool, England with the 157th Overseas Battalion Canadian Expeditionary Force. This scrapbook is one of 2 compiled by Annie Boys of Innisfil, which comprise about 70 pages of items clipped from newspapers and news magazines. Just over 1,000 men and 3 women with connections to Simcoe County died during the conflict or shortly thereafter of wounds or injuries sustained while in service, and many of them are depicted in these books. Following the First World War, local memorials and cenotaphs were erected in various communities across Simcoe County. No single memorial dedicated to all of the county's war dead existed, however, until the archives launched the Simcoe County Remembers database in November 2018, just in time for the centenary of the armistice. Users can search by name, service number, or the name of the local community to which the deceased was connected. Both former and current place names can be searched, along with locations in what is now Remera Township. The results of a search first appear as an honor roll listing, followed by a certificate-style page when someone clicks on one of the names on the list. The entire roll was distributed in printed form in the November 2019 issue of Focus 50+.
The next conflict we remember is the Second World War, which took place between 1939 and 1945. And we have a number of records, corporate and municipal and privately donated, that speak to this time period. As with the First World War, there was a real focus on memorializing fallen heroes for the Second World War. And we have a number of examples of those memorials. So this is one that was created by Barrie Collegiate Institute, which was a high school in Barrie. It was issued to family members of servicemen and women who had fallen. And you can see this one belonged to Donald, well, it didn't belong to, but it went to the family of Donald Orlow Feltz, and he's on the first page here. And the book memorialized, I believe, mostly former students from the high school who had served and who had fallen, but it also includes not just those who had fallen, but all who had participated. So those are captured here. From the corporate and municipal side, we have records from the Simcoe County War Records Committee, which is part of the Simcoe County Clerk's Office Phone. This committee was created by County Council to monitor military personnel, paying special attention to those who died while in service. The committee sent out letters requesting that the clerks of Simcoe County's lower tier municipalities document and report on the status of military personnel from their communities. Throughout the war, they continually updated their lists and maintained correspondence with the War Records Committee so that it could compile accurate and up-to-date data. The information collected proved invaluable at the end of the war when it was used by the Simcoe County War Memorial Plaque Committee. This committee was tasked with memorializing Simcoe County's fallen servicemen and women. The Simcoe County Second World War Memorial Plaque contains the names of 384 men. These were residents of the county at the time of enlistment who died overseas. The plaque originally hung in the county courthouse, but can now be found at the Simcoe County Museum. And you see here we have a drawing of what the plaque was going to look like, and then we have the original blueprint of the plaque. In addition to our corporate municipal records documenting the Second World War, we also have many privately donated collections. And one of the most recent that we've taken in is the Mervyn Albert Hamill collection. Mervyn Albert Hamill, who went by Dick, was born in Singhampton on July 6, 1921. He began his active service on December 15, 1942, and served as a leading aircraftsman for the Royal Canadian Air Force. This collection is primarily comprised of wartime correspondence from Dick and his family based out of Singhampton. You can see here that we have different postcards. We have a Christmas card from his parents, letters he'd written to his sisters, and also some official correspondence and telegrams. It's sad to say, but he did die overseas. He died January 8th, 1946, technically after the war had ended, but he became ill during the cleanup process and never made it home. So it's a very sad story. Mervyn Albert Hamill was laid to rest at the Holton Canadian War Cemetery in Holland. And as part of his personal effects, there's this book which actually includes a photograph of the particular cemetery where he was. He is memorialized on the Second World War Memorial Plaque, which is now at the Simcoe County Museum.
Less than 5 years after the end of the Second World War, Canadians were again serving overseas, this time in Korea. The Korean War, also known as Canada's Forgotten War, lasted from 1950 to 1953, and 26,000 Canadians served during the conflict. Of the 516 persons who died during the war, at least 8 were from communities within Simcoe County. The Archives holds few records, private records, pertaining to the Korean War. There are probably 2 reasons for this. One is that there were fewer people who served during the war, and of those who did serve, they or their families are holding on to the personal memories from that time period. What the Archives does have, however, are newspapers from across Simcoe County for that time period. This is a microfilm copy of the Midland Free Press and County Herald newspaper from the 6th of October, 1951. Printed on the front page was an article about Private Mauriel Joseph Moreau of Penetanguishene, who had been killed a few days earlier while serving in Korea with the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. His name, as well as those of Kenneth Roger Montague and Herman Joseph Moreau, is engraved on the stone placed at the Penetanguishene War Memorial in memory of those who fell during the Korean War. As with the Korean War, the Archives has few materials pertaining to the 2001 to 2014 war in Afghanistan. This may be in part because people don't realize that modern materials can come to the Archives. It doesn't have to be a certain age to come. This is the August-September 2010 issue of the North Simcoe News. On page 8 is an article about 24-year-old Private Kevin Thomas Mackay of Oromadandi Township, who was killed by an IED on 13th of May 2010. This happened during his last patrol with the 1st Battalion, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. He is remembered at the Horseshoe Valley Memorial Park, on the Barrie War Memorial, and in Peacekeepers Park in Angus.
So we've reviewed a couple of the collections, records, and resources that we have available at the Simcoe County Archives today. If you're interested in learning more, we actually have an online guide to researching military and wartime history in Simcoe County that you can check out.
And if you would like to come into the Archives, you can book an appointment on our website, or you can send us an email to archives@simcoe.ca.